Hi everyone, and welcome to Long Live Crypto, your entertainment and engagement hub for all things crypto and Web3. I'm your host, Adam Mastrelli. I've been working in crypto and blockchain for over half a decade as an angel investor, at the corporate level, as an LP in crypto hedge funds, and as a current partner at the Woodstock Fund. The topics covered in this podcast are provided for general information purposes only and do not constitute accounting, legal, tax, or other professional advice. Thank you for listening. If you've been enjoying Long Live Crypto, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to help others find the show. All right, here we are. Welcome back to another brilliant episode of Long Live Crypto with my partner in crime from Woodstock, Prashanth Swaminathan. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Adam, and thanks for having me here.
Easy. Where are you today? You're home? You're in Hyderabad? What's going on? Tell me what life is like in Hyderabad today.
I'm at home. I am in Hyderabad, India. We are transitioning from a very mild winter to a scorching summer in a month. So that's what Hyderabad brings.
For those that haven't been to India, give me the mild winter weather in India. You know, I've been there multiple times, so it's always pretty hot. It never has like winter. But what do you mean?
So I mean, India is such a large country, right? So we go all the way from almost close to the equator to much beyond Tropic of Cancer on the top. So it gets extremely cold in the north, and because we have the Himalayas there, right? And we have we have gone up the latitudes as well. So it gets extremely cold. But I'm in the south, right? And south, and also I'm mostly in flat terrain in a plateau. So it gets very hot in the summer, and winter for us is, because I lived in London for so long, winter, I always like to say that winter here is like the summer there, right? So that's as mild as it gets. In terms of winter, we go down to like 18 degrees centigrade, which I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but 18C is probably where we go. And then you see people, wearing monkey caps or sweater jumpers or jackets at 18 degrees. What's wrong with you?
I like the idea of monkey caps, that people will be wearing caps that would monkey heads. I think that could be monkey caps feels like a British, Indian phrase. Americans, we use wool hats, right? Or something like that. But I might start using monkey caps. I think that's might be my new thing. Okay, so this episode, Prashant and I were chatting offline. We're going to do a little bit of long live East-West corridor, long live India, some version of that. I mean, I've had a chance over the past year working with Woodstock to really dive into the Indian ecosystem, led by Prashant, who obviously lives there and has worked in London at Morgan Stanley for 10 years. So Prash, why don't we start there? Why don't we start, before we get into the crypto stuff and what you're doing now, take us back. Take us back 10 years when you started falling in love with Arsenal. How back? Take us back. Go start for a little bit from the beginning. Obviously, I want to make sure that everybody knows how difficult it is to get into IIT and some of those things. So go from the IIT world of jumping into school. And competition is in your bones. So I always like working with you. Go for it, my friend.
Yeah. Look, I grew up in Hyderabad. I went to high school here. And after high school, this is now in 2001. Then most people who want to do engineering, like to qualify in this examination called JEE, which is Joint Entrance Examination, which is the entry point for getting into IITs, right? And if I remember right, then around somewhere 500,000 students sit for it, and then we used to have around 2,000 entries. And into 6 different IITs, right? And now it's much larger. They have made it a lot broader. I think we have I don't even know how many. Maybe we have 25 IITs now. But back then it was a very small percentage of people could get in. And luckily, I was one, and I started my engineering at IIT Guwahati, which is in the Northeast. And I did civil engineering there for 4 years. And right after, this is again, I would say in retrospect, a bit of herd mentality. I thought I will just go and do my MBA as well from one of the top Indian management schools. And again, it's a similar type of percentage, right? Where now you have 400,000 students sitting to kind of get into one of these 6 IIMs. Where, at least at that time, it was 2 tiers. There was tier 1, which was Ahmedabad, Bangalore, and Calcutta, and tier 2, which was Indore, Kozhikode, and Lucknow. And yeah, I mean, I went to Calcutta out of that. And then 2 years of that, 2005 to 7. You don't kind of like do masters or like majors in anything. You just pick subjects based on what you want to do. And mine was a mix of marketing and finance, right? Because I have to be very honest, I wasn't sure which way I was leaning. And 2000 came by, and then we had placements, and then and that's when Morgan Stanley recruited me to do an internship in London within the structured products desk. And so probability wise, IIT, IIM, and then like an investment bank, right? So this is I would say low probability event, and something you kind of feel will make you the happiest person in life. But then as you age, you realize that happiness is completely different to such things in life. So anyways, that's something completely different topic. So then 2007, I moved over to London from India, first time out, and 11 years I was in Morgan Stanley. Funny story that when I started, the team I started in is pretty much the one that is covered in the movie The Big Short. So we were sitting on piles and piles of mortgages. Mine was more on the European side. So, where Steve Carroll is sitting in this hedge fund, and he's told that, and they are owned by Morgan Stanley, and he's told that they have taken certain positions in the junior tranche and then tried to hedge it with senior tranche. And then, it just all got messed up, and they ended up, I think, around 14 billion in losses. That's pretty much our counterpart team in the US, right? So we also had like significant losses on our desk. And didn't go anywhere close to that number. It was more hundreds of millions, but still pretty bad. So I started my career at the worst possible time in finance. Everyone was getting fired left, right, center, no earnings, nothing. We would go day to day thinking whether or not the bank would exist the day after, right? And then we saw Lehman happening, then Bankam got bailed out, and then it was like a domino effect. Lehman, Bankam, Morgan Stanley, and Goldman Sachs. That's how the risk trajectory went. So once Lehman went out of the picture, all the focus was on Bankam. Once Bankam got saved by, what am I saying? It's not Bankam, it's Merrill Lynch, right? Once Merrill Lynch got saved by Bankam, they got saved. Then all the sharks started hovering around Morgan Stanley, and then we were like in deep shit, right? And then all of a sudden, we got like a bailout from a Japanese bank, right? And the $9 billion check that we got is what pretty much saved our life, because it propped up our equity positions and the capital position of the bank, and that kind of like put all the shots away. And then Warren Buffett came into like fund Goldman Sachs, and then that got saved, right? So yeah, we saw I was pretty much on the desk while all of this was happening through 2008 and 2009. Great times. I didn't like it at all at that time. Because every day you're just going through a feeling that you will get fired. At one point, then I started realizing, that if I get fired, I get fired. I don't really give a shit anymore. Let's just put our head down and continue working. And that's what my dad told me. My dad told me when I was like young. I called back. I said, I'm super anxious. I'm like super nervous. This is what's happening. He's like, dude, I mean, you've done so much in life. You've come to where you are. It's okay. If you get fired, just come back to India. We'll figure out what we can do. And I'm like, I love it. I mean, that makes so much sense. And since then I was like pretty changed. I just enjoyed what I was doing. And then 10 years at Morgan Stanley, did mortgage structuring, then a bit of portfolio trading, then set up a team with my manager in global capital markets. This was to because a lot of shit across Europe. Most of the banks in Europe are holding a pile of non-performing or capital-intensive assets. And we figured out a business model whereby we thought we will start moving a lot of these assets from public sector into private sector. We knew a lot of hedge funds and asset managers who were hungry for such assets. So we just started creating markets pretty much in illiquid assets to move this from public to private sector. And over a period of time, started financing it. And after that, like in 2016, etc., we started securitizing the senior financing as well. This is when I started realizing that the world has come a full circle. We have started securitizations again. This is what created the 2008 bubble. Not that I thought it would create another bubble. I was just like, this just means that it's time to move on, because I've just done the entire circle within the bank now, right? So what else is there to learn? My learning curve was pretty flat at the time. And I always had this very deep, both my wife and I, we always wanted to come back to India. It's very difficult to explain why, but we just had it in our bones that we just want to come back to India, because that is where we always felt we were at home. Um, Not like I didn't have a good time in London. I think I had 10 of my best years in London. I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan, as you know, so no better place than London. I'm a huge tennis fan, no better place than Wimbledon, very close to Roland Garros in Paris. I'm a huge cricket fan, obviously, no better place than Lords or the Oval. So, had a great time, but home is home. So 2018 is when I moved back to India, and by now I am now bit by the crypto bug. Again, very serendipitous how that happened, and could not have chosen a worse time again to start my my career in digital assets. I started in 2018, which is what was the beginning of the worst bear market in crypto. And Yeah, I think my experience in 2007 to 9 built me pretty well for the bear market in crypto. And again, do your thing, the market, let it take care of itself, and then just stay true to what you want to do. And that philosophy has just stuck with me. And yeah, 2018 onwards, I was in digital assets, 2.5 years as an entrepreneur. Wasn't successful, but started gravitated towards venture in the meantime, and met with our folks at Woodstock towards end of 2020, and from Q1 2021. So wow, 2 years now. I've been with Woodstock. Right now, I am a partner. I'm a fund manager, manage our second fund. I handle a lot of our institutional relationships. And yeah, it's been a great journey. I think we are at an inflection point to do great things at the fund, and can't wait.
Yeah, what a boring background. Really, not very diverse, not very exciting. I was totally bored that whole time. No, dude, that was an incredible background. As many times as I've heard that background, I learned two things from you today. I love the story about your father saying, if you get fired, you get fired. And then I love the kind of come back home to India when speaking with your wife. And I really, really feel that my first trip to India it feels natural for me to go back as well. And let me add in one more thing that we share that we spoke about. We discovered in Dubai when we were at our dinner in Dubai, going back maybe a year and a half. My first trip to India, I met a gentleman named Mali Mastan Babu.
Oh yeah, the legend.
Mali, the legend. Mali, for those, Google him. He's an incredible Google. He was the first, born in a small southern Indian town, never around snow, never around climbing, anything. And had it in his head when he was a child that he wanted to summit Everest. This was his dream. And he gave a talk at the Indian School of Business in Hyderabad in 2009 when I was there, dream big. And I was completely enamored with him. He, at one point, held the world record for the 7 summits, which is summiting the 7 highest peaks on all 7 continents. Self-taught, self-trained, an incredible climber, the first Southeast Asian, I believe, maybe the first Asian to hold this world record. He did it in 154 days. So he held that record for a really long time. It ends up that when we were speaking, that you actually went to high school with him. Is that right? That he was leading your adventure club or something like that.
Yeah. So when I was in Calcutta for my management, so he was also an alumnus of IIM Calcutta, and
yes,
he had set up the adventure club over there. I don't know if he had set up or not, but he was pretty much running the show. And as I was part of it, in one of our holiday seasons, he took us to trekking in the Northeast, in Sikkim, which is one of the 7 Northeastern states. And it's crazy because he just knew everything, right? And it's not like he's you speak to him first 5 minutes, you would think that he is a bit snobbish, he's like a bit rude, but that's just how he is. And like, he just looks, if he has taken you on this trip, it is his responsibility to make sure that all of you are fine. He didn't have to, right? We were all grown-ups, but I mean, he like was and funnily enough, during that trip, as we were trekking and getting down, and a landslide occurred very close to us, right? And I mean, some of us were like, dude, I mean, why did we come here? This is like the worst decision of our life. And he was the one who kind of like, calmed everyone. And he's like, this is how we'll go about it. We'll wait. We'll notice if we start moving. This is blah, 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 right? And then he just like took care of it like it's so neatly. Great guy. He got a job in a corporate. He did it, I think, for 6 months or something. And then he realized this is not for me. He just realized that I am born to kind of mountaineer. I just want to scale all these mountains. And then he just set off. And then I was like, wow, huge respect.
Yeah, big respect. And to complete the story, unfortunately, or really fortunately on some level for what he was doing with his life, Ali passed, I believe, 3 to 5 years ago while doing a solo climb in Chile. He was doing what he loved. He had told me at any point, if he does pass, it would definitely be while climbing. So he was doing what he loved. One of the big regrets of my life is I never got to climb with him. He had invited me to climb in Kilimanjaro, and timing didn't work out. Timing. It's on me. I didn't make it happen. So two lessons I'll take away from that. And one of the reasons I'm coming to Keyor's wedding in India in April is, one, definitely dream big. Anybody listening, please dream big. Two, your time is limited. So when someone asks you if you have the resources to go take a lifetime trip to India to go to a wedding or climb Kilimanjaro with a world champion climber, just make it happen. Otherwise, you might not get that opportunity again. So big respect to Mali Mastan Babu. Look him up, follow his journey, and dream big. Okay, now that we're in India, let's pivot to India a little bit. I just got back from Davos. I was at the India House. Incredible food. The India reception was insane. It was so great. I mean, being, in a room full of Indians, the buzz is palpable for an outsider. And so talk to me about, you wrote an incredible article that we'll include in the notes here on your Substack around India, Web3, and this upcoming $5 trillion economy, right? I mean, we can start a little bit of India surpassed, right, the UK as the number 5 economy in the world, number 6 economy in the world, and trending towards number 3 here in the next decade. So can you just walk us through a little bit of that article, where we are with India in the global economy, and then we can kind of focus it down into the Web3 economy.
Yep. I've been I call myself a perma bull on India. And most of it comes from the fact that, the country is huge. The demographics are its biggest strength. It's massively English speaking and very, tech and services focused. And after a very long time, we've had a very stable government for, a decade or close to a decade now, right? And significant tailwinds for the growth of the economy. And I just reading this somewhere that it took us, I think, 50 plus years to become a 1 trillion economy. It then took us 7 years to become 2 trillion. And then within 6, we are now close at or about 3, right? So it's been growing insanely fast. Now, my problem, not a problem, but then my concern for India has always been that while the GDP as a metric is we are number 5 now. And I'm pretty sure within the next 10-15 years, the top 3 will be US, China, and India. I don't know in which order, but this will be the top 3. While the GDP number is great, it's, we also have a huge population. It's very important for India to start thinking about GDP or income per capita, right? And if you look at 1.4 billion people and you look at 3 billion economy, then the GDP or income per capita is extremely low, right? And if you then take away the top 10% of the rich people in India, then, technically we're still a poor country and there is no getting away from it. And we might double our GDP, but if it's not an equitable distribution across the population, then I wouldn't feel like we have succeeded at that point, right?
Right.
And that is what
you're adding $1 trillion to an economy to the top 10%. Half of it going to the top 10% doesn't really float. Got it.
Correct. So that was my head starting point, right? And then what I tried to say through that article is that we are at a critical juncture where we have our demographics in our favor. We are the youngest population in the world on average, and 65% of the country is less than 35 years of age, right? So that's and this is 65% of 1.4 billion. So this is as the people under 35 years of age is as much as Europe's entire population. So that's our biggest advantage, right? But this advantage will turn into a disadvantage in 20 years from now, right? Because of course, as economies improve, as demographics are more young based, it will turn to the other side as they start becoming older and older, and as in an improving economy, the the number of children per couple also keeps reducing, which has been happening in India as well, right? So you will in the normal curve, you'll start tilting more towards the higher age groups. There's still 20 years of time for us, but if the per capita income doesn't increase substantially in these 20 years, then we will become an aging population with lower productivity, right? And that will be an incredible nightmare for the country to handle at that point. Japan is going through it now. China will go through it before us, but both of them are like much stronger economies than India, right, on a per capita basis. So that is my theory, that in 20 years we'll have to kind of flip this around, not from a GDP standpoint, but a per capita standpoint. And to me, Web3 has an incredible potential to make this happen because of how open sourced it is, and because how individuals can both contribute to it and also take advantage of it in enhancing their own incomes, and which kind of then adds to the GDP and the per capita numbers, right? So that's been my theory overall. That big economy, per capita has to improve. We have population in our favor, but we need Web3 is like something that can really catapult us to the next level.
Well, before we jump into Web3, and that's great context. I mean, I get the 20-year challenges of the population and the demographics. Go back to the startup ecosystem. I think one of the other metrics we see touted a lot in 2022, in addition to passing the UK and the GDP numbers, is the speed at which India has hit 100 unicorns. Right, and maybe say 3 to 4 or 5 max were Web3. What's the startup? Just walk us through the startup ecosystem and landscape in India, and a little bit how it's interacting with the government, private funding. I mean, what does it look like there? Because really, hitting 100 unicorns, you were expecting that, or we were expecting that in like 10 years from now, maybe, right? And it went faster than expected. So what does that look like?
Yep. See, I would say Indian startup ecosystem is again the third largest in the world after US and China in terms of if your number of unicorns is a metric, then by that, or even if you look at the number of startup founders who come up each year, or the number of startups that get registered at the government agencies, right? So it's clearly the third largest. I don't particularly like to look at the unicorn status, because the unicorn status is pretty much we have had a lot of money in the system in the last 15 years, and I should say this as a VC, but the VC game has pretty much created a lot more unicorns than what they probably would have been if we had the same conditions of economy pre 2008, right? So I would always take the number of unicorns with a pinch of salt. This is not just for India, this is global, right? To me, the contribution that startups have done to the Indian GDP is again the interesting metric to look at, and this is in the region of 2 to 3%, right? In terms of the economic output created by startups, that goes towards adding to the GDP. If you look at places like the West or even the US, this is in excess of 10%, right? And that is an important factor for me to notice, because startups to me are where an economy can move very quickly, because these are 0 to 1 disruptions, and this is where you become more product oriented as an economy, and then the world starts looking at you for your products and your solutions, as opposed to you becoming the market for the world, right? And from there, I think startups is very important. Now, the economy for startups in India has definitely improved in the last 10 years, no denying that, but I think there's still a long way to go. These are again in like multiple of shapes, right? Now we have seen that be it Google, Microsoft, Adobe, etc., all their CEOs are of Indian origin, right? And while we can always blame them for leaving India, I think it has to be an intersection as to why they left India, right? And there was a significant brain drain that happened around when Web 2 was becoming big, because the research facilities and the regulations, neither of them were supportive of startups or of founders, right? And we are again at a juncture where again, I have to bring up Web3 again, because this is like the new front for internet now. And therefore, we are at the cusp of like another big revolution. And the two big mistakes we did in terms of passive regulation and no proper, research support or legal support for startups, I still see that within the system, right? And I think this has to be improved significantly for founders and startups to feel a lot more energetic and um, a lot more energetic towards doing that in India. Even today, a lot of startups, both in Web2 and Web3, have their holding companies outside of India. And what that means is, therefore, I think a lot of the tax returns, etc., that are filed by startups don't come into the country, right, as revenues. It goes to the places where the holding companies are. And this has to be fixed again, because otherwise the economic output generated by startups or the bigger startups are going to other places. We see this in Web3 as well today, where a lot of founders are moving either to Dubai, Singapore, Canada, right? So again, we are losing out on the long-term potential, and that is where I think the country needs to switch its thinking from a startup standpoint. It's great to say that we are the third largest ecosystem, but are we the third largest contributors to the world from a startup standpoint, right? And I don't think we are. And we need to fix certain things around regulations and structures to enable this, because most of the ingredients are there on the ground.
Yeah, well, let's dig into that a little bit, and then we'll come back to the kind of founders of Indian descent when you're talking about Web3. But I noticed, yesterday, I think you just kind of pushed out that you've been elected to the Indian sandbox around fintech, and I'm going to blank on the title of it. But can you talk us through what that looks like? I thought it said BBC, but I was like, no, that can't be right.
Yeah, so no, this is a great initiative, right? And as when I say we are improving on this is one such great example. So again, this is specific to Web3. So as everyone knows, Web3 is quite open source, and regulators globally are struggling to kind of see how they can regulate this asset class and this entire ecosystem. Same is the case with India. I would say we are behind the curve on that than most other countries. Now, the state of Telangana, which is where Hyderabad is. So the government came up with a Web3 regulatory sandbox, right? Telangana has the largest incubator in the country at T-Hub. And together they have come up with a regulatory sandbox for Web3. And I'm a governing council member in that, which basically means that, I get a say in how we pretty much structure this sandbox, and also how we pretty much what are the applicants who get entry into this sandbox, considering what the country needs and considering where the regulations and policies are today, right? And considering the utility that these projects are also adding to the economy. So that was a great initiative. Just last weekend, we've shortlisted 8 startups to become part of this sandbox. We have Polygon here, we have Sequoia here, we have Woodstock here. That is, and I'm representing Woodstock pretty much over there. And we have certain other ecosystem partners as well, including educational institutes, security firms, law firms, etc. Right? So it's a great initiative. We still need to see how this kind of translates into something objective and something. Ultimate goal for anything like this should be to come up with a framework or a policy that every other startup in the land can look at and go, okay, I know what I can do, I know what I cannot do, and if what I cannot do is not because I'm doing something wrong, it's just because doing it puts my country in jeopardy, right? That's the only thing that we need to worry about. So blanket bans, etc., need to go away if they were ever in the picture. And this sandbox is therefore a very good step in kind of bringing more developers, more founders into the fold for Web3, and eventually, I guess, going into mass adoption.
Yeah. Okay, got it. That's really helpful, especially the clarity around the regulation. From the casual observer, right? We get this when we talk to investors or LPs or people in TradFi. They'll say, "What's going on? In India banned crypto, right?" So can you just walk us through a little bit of that evolution? I remember go back. There was a bank ban by the RBI. Where are we today with the more national crypto regulation? Let's get into crypto a little bit now. As far as India goes, what can they do? What can they not do? Right? What does the Supreme Court do versus unilateral judgment by the RBI? And for the listeners, we'll break down all these things. For the Americans, the RBI is not runs batted in Major League Baseball. It's the Reserve Bank of India, but we'll jump into that too.
Yeah, that's good, right? Glossary of terms. RBI is in India is like the Fed in the US. SEBI in India is like the SEC in the US, right? So that's the analogy. Okay, I think this will be a slightly long answer, but I think it's worth it, right? It's good to start by saying that India has never ever banned crypto, right? never has it categorically been banned that if you are caught holding crypto, then you will go to jail. It's illegal. None of that has ever happened, regardless of whatever you read in the media. What had happened in 2018 to begin with was that the RBI had told the banks under its purview, which is basically every bank in India, that they should stop offering bank accounts to any entities in India that are in the business of buying buying and selling crypto, right? At that point, it was mostly the exchanges, so all of them lost their banking services. Now, they did this primarily because if you remove the on-ramp and off-ramp, then you pretty much crunch the liquidity within the system, right? And their objective was met. Plus, of course, it was beginning of the bear market, so I guess it was a double whammy. Then of course the regulation has always been gray in the sense that even though it's never been banned, there's never been a framework or policy that has been put out, or like any regulator coming out and categorically saying what can or cannot be done, right? So that has never happened. Anyways, the banking ban then moved forward. The entire ecosystem rallied around each other, took up the case in the Supreme Court, which is the apex court of India. And a case was fought, I think, for nearly 9 to 12 months. And the Supreme Court finally came out and said the banking ban is technically unconstitutional because you cannot prove to me that this asset is illegal, or like by buying or selling this asset, there is any nefarious activity that is being done, right? So since you cannot prove that to me, you cannot remove trading access to Indians. Because it's and you cannot by removing the banking channels because that's unconstitutional. So this was a landmark verdict that had come out of the apex court, and then technically quickly all the banking services should have resumed. It just still took some time, and even now like it it keeps getting shut at certain times, and then keeps reopening. But from the court, from the judiciary, it has been very clear that crypto you cannot ban crypto in India. That's my read into it, even though that's not what they said. They just talked about banking. But, the logic they used to that tells me that, you cannot technically ban crypto in India because a precedent has been set by the Supreme Court in terms of how they provided their verdict to the banking ban previously. Anyways, so that's been the case. And now I think we are in a stage where the adoption for crypto has gone through the roof in India. Having said that, I don't think it is close to the numbers that are quoted by the exchanges in terms of like, tens of millions of like people, trading crypto. I don't think that's true. But anyways, that's besides the point. We are at a critical juncture where the regulator now has to decide what's the next course of action in terms of regulating this, because since it's become very big, they have not done much in terms of regulating it, which has meant that unfortunately companies like Polygon, etc., have moved their place of work from India into Dubai and other places. But the regulator also does not have an easy task, right? This is where I think we need to look at the other side as well, as to why is it so difficult to regulate something like crypto in India. So there are three main challenges in my mind, right? One is tax. Okay, so crypto can operate in a very permissionless manner. We can do like cash to crypto in large volumes, whoever needs to, and it's very difficult to track, right? So how do you ensure that people who are holding crypto and like are transacting in crypto pay the appropriate tax? That is one. Second one is money laundering, right? Because crypto goes fairly under the radar. And again, I come to my view on these problems that the system also has, right? Second point is money laundering. It's again it's a global phenomenon, right? Like money laundering. Where is all this money from crypto going? We had some loan apps that were acting as sharks, and that kind of like siphoned off a lot of money from needy borrowers, and a lot of that cash was converted into crypto to exit the country, right? And this is technically laundering. Now, why it is going, where is it going, we don't know. But even like the Lazarus group out of North Korea was held transacting a lot through Tornado Cash. So this is a real problem globally, right? And you need to kind of clamp it down. The third problem, which I think is the biggest problem for someone like RBI, is unlike the US dollar, the Japanese yen, the euro, or the sterling, the Indian rupee is not a freely convertible currency, right? And it's not as openly available outside of the country as these other currencies are. And there are like strict monetary guidelines in terms of how you need to control the value of this currency against the major economies, and you have to ensure that its status as a medium of exchange and store of value is not disrupted in any shape or form. If again, I don't think crypto is anywhere close to kind of like jeopardizing this in any country such as India. It's still a concern for the RBI, right? And what if crypto becomes mainstream? What if people start transacting goods and services in something like crypto? What if especially stable coins start replacing your UPI, etc., and the dollarization of the economy happens, which all leads to loss of value and trust in the Indian rupee, right? This is the third biggest concern.
Yeah. Prash, let's
yeah.
Before we go on, you mentioned something I think that's really important that I learned a lot more about in Davos through one of the ministers was the UPI. And I think this is a pretty big technical achievement, not only technically, but also societally, right? Societally, for society in India. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what UPI is, what it aimed to do, what it's doing today? And then, we'll go on from there.
Yep. So UPI is basically Unified Payments Interface. Okay, that was launched by this entity called NPCI. What it does, I mean, it's fabulous. Okay, and this kind of comes to another point in terms of, at least in my personal opinion, how India is projected in the media world over versus how the country is internally, right? And if you are outside, you would think that this is still a land of snake charmers. But how advanced it is from a technology standpoint in certain aspects like payments, etc., is mind-boggling considering the vastness of the country and the population, right? And
to be fair, I hope that there are snake charmers at Kayor's wedding. I that's all I'm saying.
I think there'll be elephants, there will be horses. I don't know about snake
charmers.
Let's go. You should put it as a request to Kayor.
I'm putting it in Slack. I need a snake charmer.
If you want me at the wedding, there should be a snake charmer with a snake. Not just a snake charmer.
Exactly.
Anyways, so coming back to UPI. So what UPI has done is it basically allows now every Indian with a smartphone and internet connection to pay for goods and services using your phone like a tap, right? All you have to do is you go to any vendor or any service provider, and they have a QR code. And you just take your phone, you just scan that, and then you can just automatically transfer, like I'm just sending a message to you. It's as simple as that. I just scan the QR code, I just put in like the amount, it just gets debited from my account, credited in their account instantaneously, right? And this is incredible to the extent that even when you're in the remotest corners of India now, if you have to like eat at a restaurant, or if you have to eat something at like the roadside chai wala, everyone has a UPI QR code. Everyone has a phone. The smartphone penetration is crazy. Everyone has a UPI, and everything is digital. It's to an extent that since I moved back to India 5 years ago, I barely carry cash anymore, right? It's still a heavily cash-driven system, but I can get away without cash even in like tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 cities or towns in India. And this is fabulous. I have not seen that level of penetration of digital payments architecture in US, in UK, anywhere.
So Prash, we're gonna wrap up this episode with some fun personal questions. You've been an amazing guest. You're a good friend. I can't wait to get more info on my tailor in India for the wedding. So you'll give me all that stuff. But since we mentioned Mali earlier, and he kind of really influenced me and my dreams, dreaming big, my own childhood dreams. I'm curious, what did you want to be when you grew up? Before you knew you could be an investment banker, what did you want to be when you were a kid?
I wanted to be a professional cricketer.
Okay, tell me more. Tell me more.
Were
you a bowler? Did you want to be a bowler?
I was a batsman.
Okay.
I was fairly good, and I went for a few coaching camps, which is what you do in summer, like 3-month long camps. And in one of them, my coach, he told my grandfather, who had taken me then for those classes, that make him come here for like the entire year, and I'm very sure he will go at least to the state level, right? And by state level, it means like playing for Telangana or Andhra Pradesh as it was back then. And that really got me pumped up, and I'm like, wow, this is what I want to do. I love the game, and he thinks I can do well, so I'm set. This is what I'm going to do. But things were quite different back in India, like 30 years, 25 years ago, right? We were from like a lower middle class family. And while sports is great, it does not necessarily guarantee you a livelihood or even like any sort of major scholarships in India, right? Or at least did not used to back then. So if you're in lower middle class, the most likely way for you to get out of that into like slightly better economic situation is by studying hard and by getting a good job. So
Yeah.
this is what was explained to me by my parents, and of course I'm laughing about it now, and I kind of see totally that it made sense back then now. But then back then, of course, I was like a very young kid, very rebellious kid, and I was like, no way, this is what I'm gonna do. So, but then yeah, I mean, you don't really defy your parents as much in India, and you just toe the line, and that's what I did.
Smart man, not defying the parents. Let me jump into like favorite quotes, favorite maxims. You know, I have a whole folder of favorite quotes or favorite maxims that I love. A lot of Steve Jobs stuff that I really enjoy. Do you have any favorite quotes or maxims or people that you've quoted over the years that you have really loved and looked up to?
Not really. I mean, I've never been like a very favorite quotes, favorite meme, memes probably, favorite quotes, favorite maxims, or I've never even had like role models, right? In the sense, if you ask me
Mm.
who was your role model, I I know people who may have like helped me in my career, but that's more like within family, etc. I've never really had like a role model either. From that standpoint, I respect a lot of people. I look up to a lot of people, but I won't call anyone role models either.
Let me dig a little further. We've mentioned this on other calls. What about something more like mythological, right? Whether that's something in the Bhagavad Gita or
Yeah,
a Ganesh story or a Hanuman story. My guy Hanuman wearing monkey hats. What any
yeah.
of that, like the influence of either the mythology in India that's kind of set you up on a path that you're like, oh, when I work, I'm doing this, or I'm really leading this part of my life.
Yeah, so I wouldn't call myself extremely religious, but I have become more and more spiritual, over the last 15, 20 years. I really, really I'm beginning to dig into more of Hinduism. And these gods are like, uh, um people who kind of like you think of them and then like they automatically give you positive energy, right? Like you kind of hear them in like this tales, you look at Mahabharata, Ramayana, you like look at those stories and like you're like, wow, that's so cool, so someone like Krishna, someone like Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva are like cool people, right? Someone like Lord Ram is like, oh, he's like the perfect son or like the perfect husband, etc. So that's always been the case, and I've been like heavily influenced by Hinduism. Um, uh, More than like going to a temple and worshipping on like a regular basis, I'm more like believer in things like karma and dharma and having to do the right thing, right? And that is where I come. So one of the things I'm doing right now is reading this book called "How Do You Teach Hinduism to Your Child," right? And it's like a very simple book though, and they have like gone about explaining a lot of things in the Vedas and the Upanishad in like a very simple way. So that's something I have started reading now, and yeah, I mean, I would say it's been going great, and I want to do a lot more of this. The more I read, I feel like there's so much more I don't know about my own religion. So yeah.
Right. And if I remember, we spoke about this, you're actually learning Sanskrit. And so I think the
No,
title
I'm not
of your
learning
book,
Sanskrit. It's
no?
something I want to. I haven't started yet.
Okay. But so this is the book. I'm going to give you the title of your book. It's from cricket to Sanskrit. And it's a journey from your life as an early cricketer to now your later life as an expert in Sanskrit and all things Hindu mythological I can't even speak today, man. This is great. It's the end of an episode. We're gonna really love it. Okay, Prashanth, it's always such a pleasure, man. I love working with you. I love hearing about what's going on in your life, family, work. You're an inspiring guy to me. I work harder because of you, and I continue to learn a lot working with you. So hopefully you come back on the podcast, and India will
Yeah,
be
man.
the number three economy in the world. And we'll have more portfolios companies to talk about with either founders of Indian descent globally or more founders in India. And we'll do hackathons. I'll come have some food in Hyderabad. I'll see you at the wedding. And thanks a lot for being here.
No, it's been a great pleasure, and I need to add a few points of gratitude as well. I think you're also a very inspiring person, incredibly selfless person, and I've learned a lot from you as well. And enjoy working with you. This podcast has been great, and onwards and upwards, as we say.
Onwards and upwards. I'm going to use that tagline and sheepishly, selfishly pump it to everybody that says I'm the most selfless person on podcasting. So let's put that out there. Thank you.
That's great, man. Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening. If you've been enjoying Long Live Crypto, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's a great way to help others find the show.